So basically, let's start with something that is really not a tool, but I have here because I find it to be a necessary. I guess it's more of a supply. And maybe I should do a separate video about supplies. But again, because I want to display the tools at the end of what you need as a beginning jeweler, I wanted to put these in, and they're basically bead stoppers. And although, again, they're not really a tool, they're a supply, but they're such a necessary supply for beginning jewelers, and they're just basically a bead stopper. And they have these little jaws in them, and they come in different shapes and sizes. And this basically what happens is you open it up, it exposes all the little jaws there, and then you would put your wire in it and close it, and it's going to hold your wire in place and prevent all of your beads that you've strung from slipping off of your wire, so you don't have to lose beads and restring. So bead stoppers, I believe, are a really important part of beginning jeweling. So that's why I've got those sitting there. So that's the bead stoppers and why they're there. Let's go ahead and jump into all the tools now. So I have here a pair of nylon jaw pliers. Nylon jaw pliers, or maybe they're just called nylon pliers, but I think they're called, or maybe they're called nylon straightening pliers, but they're nylon pliers in the jewelry making world. If you type on nylon jewelry pliers, they're gonna come up. So basically what they are is they have a nylon, it's a very thick nylon based material in the middle here, and they are designed to use for thicker gauge wire, artistic craft wire, head pins, and thicker wire that tends to get like bent and like funky. You would put the wire in there, close it, and then go like this along your wire, and it basically straightens your wire out. So this is a really great tool to have for more advanced using. It really helps to preserve your wire so you have less loss of wire, and it straightens it out beautifully so you, again, can fix it if it's all, bent up and whatever, and also reduces the loss of your wire. So that's a pair of nylon pliers. I'm going to go over here next into our one-step looper and our round nose pliers. They're not one and the same, but they are serving the same purpose. Let's talk about the one-step looper first. As its name implies, it is a one-step looper for making loops on craft wire and head pins, if you're using head pins for earrings or pendants or charms on your necklaces, bracelets, anklets, whatever. You need to make a loop, right? So this one step looper is designed to be a very good tool if you're making a lot of loops in a smaller amount of time. Even if you're making a bunch of loops to string along like a necklace that has a bunch of looped, wire looped jewelry components, and then you're going to link them all together. That's very popular. A lot of people do that. I see a lot of listings out with jewelry made just exactly like that. And so therefore you're making a lot of loops. You might want to pick up a one-step looper. And as its name implies, in one step it makes a loop. Now this is a 1.5 millimeter loop. They come in 1.5 mm, which is millimeter. I believe they come in 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3 mm. So these are pretty pricey, I'll be honest. I think they're like, I may have paid about $25 for these. And you can find them all over the place, Amazon, big box retail, lots of jewelry supply, online companies. A lot of people carry these, but they are pricey, and they go from $22 all the way up, I think, to $35. So they're more expensive. So you don't really need them if you're getting started and you have no intention to really be doing a lot of looping. Then you really don't need these. But let me pull them up and show you how they work. As you can see, there's two jaws, right? So this over here, where there's like a little pin, this is, and then over here, can you see and make that out? There's a hole. So what you do is you would feed your wire through, and then you go like this, and pay attention to right there. As that's closing, that little section right there just made your loop. The other part of the wire, oops, Sorry guys, they just dropped right out of my hands. Sorry about that. The other part of the wire that was sticking out of this loop here, it goes away and it cuts it off and drops off. So in one step, you make a loop and it cuts the wire. So that's a one-step looper, and mine is a 1.5 millimeter. And by the way, that's good size to buy if you're just making a lot of earrings or using head pins to put on a charm or a focal, on anything, a bracelet, whatever you're making. And that's a very like a medium size loop. It's my go-to size. So 1.5 millimeter is a good size one-step looper to buy if you just want to make those medium-sized loops, which are pretty average and standard. Recommend buying that size. But again, this is not something you need if you're just starting out, so we're going to put that guy to the side. Now, in the same conversation topic about making loops, you then go into your round nose pliers. Now, these round nose pliers are a little more expensive, and as you can see, the way they're designed, they're very ergonomic, and they reduce strain on the wrist. So also, let me pull it up and show you this particular one-step looper has an additional feature. If you can see right here at the bottom, see how it's flat right here? That also cuts the wire. So let's say I have a head pin, and I put it in here, and I'm making my loop, okay? And I don't want to pick up something to cut it. I can simply just grab and cut right there. So these are a round nose plier, and these are designed for making loops, whether it's on craft wire or head pins or anything you're doing with thicker wire that you need to make a loop. These are a round nose plier. So you'll need those if you intend to make a lot of loops. Next plier we have here are the chain nose pliers. Chain nose pliers, let me pull that up. As you can see, they're kind of like half round and half flat, and they're called chain nose pliers. They have a very nice point here. And these are by the Beadsmith. This is their Ergo series, and I love them. And they also have an inner spring, as you can see there. And they look at just, they fit so perfectly in the hand. These are a great pair. These are titanium. These are going to last a long time. And again, they're the Beadsmith brand, excellent brand in this particular line, the Ergo series that they have. You're going to use a pair of chain nose pliers pretty much all the time. They have a various use in jewelry making, whether it is picking up and manipulating and using jump rings. You can use these to put on focals. If you're wire wrapping, you will be using these a lot to tuck in the wire once you cut it. Your findings on all your clasps, if you're using crimp covers and crimp for your crimp beads, there's just a various use for chain nose pliers. And again, we'll do that separate video and really get into the detail of all of the different uses, specifically of those specific tools. I'm just doing a quick overview now, but these are an integral part. You will use these all the time, so we're going to keep them on our board as a must-have for the beginners, which, by the way, that's what I'm doing. I'm putting to the side what I'm going through it all, but I'm going to end up leaving here on the mat what we're going to discuss at the end, which are must-have tools for beginners. So moving right along, next we have our bent nose pliers, and as you can see in the name implies, they are bent. And they are bent kind of going inwards because this is how you would use them. And these are really great, again, for lots of different things. Working with jump rings, working with earrings, closing up your loops when you're making loops to get them nice and closed. You can use the chain nose for those as well. But what I love about my bent nose pliers, and I use these all of the time, 100% of the time, I guarantee you, I'm using these. These, I think, are the Bead Buddy. Yeah, these are Bead Buddy brand. And this is a great kind of middle of the road. They also have an inner spring. And they're great because, as you can see, they're designed bent like that, so they're not, the plier is not getting in the way of the work that you're doing. So like if you grab the jump ring, you know, the pliers out of your waist, you can really see what you're doing over here. And again, you can use them for working with your findings, your clasping, working with chain link. These just have a various broad amount of use in jewelry making as well. So you'll want to have a pair of bent nose pliers. So we're keeping that on the beginner mat here. These are another pair of pliers that is, I think, widely debatable of whether or not you need them in your must-have stash. Mine, I think these again are the Beadsmith, yeah. And these are titanium, also with an inner spring. And I think that, as you can see, let me pull them up, I think that's about a 1/2 inch flat nose. So these flat nose pliers, I feel, are necessary. I would definitely and arguably put them in your must-have because, again, they have such a wide variety of use in jewelry making. Now, whether you're beading with beading wire, or you're making anklets, or earrings, or adding chain link and combining chain link with beading wire, or just making chain link necklaces, or using wire component to turn into a chain link and connect them. A flat nose plier, it's essential, and you're going to find this to be very helpful in making those types of jewelry. So that's a flat nose plier. And so I'm going to put this on here as kind of a maybe we need it in our beginning. Now, the next thing I have here, we're going to get into some wire cutters. These are a little mini pair of memory wire cutters. And as you can see the difference in the size of any of my other tools, they're very, very small. And the reason I just bought myself, and they don't have an inner spring, an auto spring, you kind of got to really, you know, they tend to go out, so you kind of got to really work with them. But they have a nice thick, as you can see that there's a really thick jaw that with ease goes ahead and cuts your memory wire. Now, the reason I bought the small is because I don't use memory wire a lot. I use it sometimes, but not a lot. So I really didn't need to spend a lot of money on buying a full-size pair. And also, if you're not intending to get into memory wire as you begin your jewelry making, you would not need these. But these are my minis, and they are used just for cutting the memory wire with ease. And these were really inexpensive. They were probably like $5. So because I don't feel like a lot of people really start out using memory wire, I'm going to put these over here in our, we don't have to have it at the beginning. But that's a pair of memory wire cutters. The next two type of cutters I have are, they look the same, but they're actually not. And if you look really close at the tops here, you can tell that the orange are quite a bit more pointy than the black, and also the blade on the back. Do you see how this one has much more silver going around and then this one does not? These are flush cutters, and these are kata. They're a little pricier. I think they're more like in the $12 range, and these are flush cutters. So these are a must-have to cut all your regular jewelry beading wire. So all the wire that you use to feed the beads on and make a regular beaded necklace, you must have a pair of flush cutters. They are designed to get right in to the very center, small tiny space between your beads to cut that tail wire off that you won't need. So your flush cutters you don't want to use for anything else but flush cutting your beading, regular beading wire. And then your other, the reason I have the other pair is because I use, and you can see these are really getting very groovy and a lot of divots in there, showing a lot of wear. I use these, I have these on hand for specifically if I'm working with chain, which I work with a significant amount of the time, and wire wrapping or cutting the head pins or using artistic craft wire. All of these wires are much thicker gauge than your beading wire, and therefore they require a heavier duty cutter, and because it's all thicker, right? and they will also wear and tear very quickly. So quite honestly, I don't spend a lot of money on them, probably like $5, $6, 7 at the max. And I go through probably a pair every couple of months, probably every 2 months or so, because they don't they don't last long. I don't think they're intended to. And when I'm cutting a lot of the thicker chain, obviously, it takes you quite a few times if you're using like 3 or 4 millimeter chain, which I do a lot, as you can see on this piece over here, and they're going to thrash them much quicker. So you never want to use your flush cutters for that, because these are more expensive than just a regular pair of, these are just called wire cutters. And they're not as great for cutting into the beading wire, but they're great for cutting the thicker wire, the artistic wire, in the chain, like I said. So I don't think you really need these to get started, but I do have several pairs of these on hand. I go through them a lot because I do a lot of chain link. Now, if you're going to be starting doing a lot of chain jewelry, then go ahead and get yourself a pair of regular wire cutters and keep them separate from your beading chain, or regular beading wire, your smaller 19, 18, 15-inch beading wire that comes on the spool, because you don't want to ruin them, and they are much more expensive. So I'll put those to the side. Now we're going to get into the last tools I have here, which are my crimpers. As you can see, I have really 3 in front of me, but really it's 2 types. Okay, so these are my Cadillac version, and they're or Bentley version. We'll talk about those in a second. But these are basically the same, but they're just in a different color. There's a black and a blue. I happen to like my blue better, but they're actually really getting worn. I've used them for so long, so I just picked up another extra pair the other day of black, because these I've been using for so many years that I feel like I need to replace them. So let's go with, these are a regular pair of crimping pliers. We'll go with the black. And let me show you, see how once we get in here, let me close it without pinching my finger. And then do you see there how you have 2, like divots inside there, like holes? So that is how most normal crimpers are designed that way. So there's position 1 and 2. So when you first crimp your bead, the first step is you put it in this second position where there's it's like a little divot that comes down, and that crimps the crimp bead or crimp tube in between both sides of your wire. And then the top one, you flip the crimp bead over, you put it in the top one, you press it down, and then that folds your crimp bead over to really keep it in place. So this is just your standard crimping pliers. They all mostly work the same. And these are also not expensive. But that is a must-have. You've got to have those. And then the other type of crimping tool I have here, as you can tell, these are completely different in shape. I'll pull those up. See how my green ones are really pointed and the other ones are not? Okay, so these, let's talk about these for a second. These are Xuron. And Xuron is arguably, let's call it the Bentley of jewelry tool brands. They are really pricey, and I would suggest waiting on buying a tool like this until you get much more advanced, okay? Now, the difference in this is, well, first of all, you get what you pay for, right? Because these are much more expensive. They're going to last a lot longer. They have a totally different material they're made out of. And they also have a built-in chain nose plier, which is why they're pointed, right? So you see how, look at the similarity. So when you're crimping, it's the same divots as is the regular crimpers, but also they have like a chain nose at the end. So these are, really designed for more, like I said, more advanced users, or if you're really comfortable and in your jewelry making, when you're crimping at the same time, if you needed to kind of get in there and tweak something, maybe a bead cover or a piece of the wire got loose, you can, without pulling your hands away from your jewelry as you're making it, to grab another tool like a chain nose plier, they went ahead and just and figured out how to put that design right in the same plier. So really cool design, but again, really pricey, well over the $25 mark. Do not need to have these to get started. So we'll put these over here in this area. So now we're down to the final segment of this tutorial, which is what tools do you really need just as a beginning jeweler? Well, you need these 5 tools. And then of course your bead stoppers, which is more of a supply. So we talked about that, so we'll move them away. So just straight tools, this is what you will have to have, bar none, if you are beginning your jewelry journey. And we'll go through them one at a time again. We have round nose pliers, that's a must-have. We have bent nose pliers, must-have. Chain nose pliers, must-have. Then you have your flush cutters, must-have. And if you are, and excuse me, and I thought these were my other black cutters, and your crimpers, my bad guys, and your crimping pliers. So crimpers, flush cutters, chain nose, bent nose, round nose. These are your must-have 5 tools to get started on your jewelry journey. And so what I'll do is I'll put in the description all the tools we discussed today, but then I'll go a step further and I'll separate out for beginners required tools. And I hope that helps you guys. So, you know what, look, I don't want you to go out and spend a bunch of money. I love to pay things forward. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get going. I would say, you know, kind of a ballpark, if you go on a place like Amazon, or just stay away from big box retail in the first place, because, you know, they mark things up. Even though, you know, we have great quality, we're just talking in context now of just beginning jewelers. You have so many things you're gonna have to buy, and there is some investment. This is just my recommendation. Try to get the cheaper version of your tools. So try to go on the lower end, because you will notice pretty quickly, probably a few months in to really making your jewelry, you're gonna start to notice, oh, wait a minute, this isn't working right. I need something more ergonomic. Oh, this is too small. I need something longer. I need something a different shape. Oh, I don't like the way these cutters, they are terrible. They're not sharp enough. I need to get a really higher end flush cutter. You know, all of those things will come into factor, because that's normal. That's exactly what happened to me. But what I'm trying to do is pay forward and help what I didn't have when I started years ago, which is just tell me, what do I need to get started so that I don't waste money. I don't want to buy what I don't need. And then also, you know, I don't want to bring my beads and my wire home and a few other things I bought, and I'm so excited to get going, and I got my crimp beads and my jump rings and all this supplies, but I forgot to buy, you know, 2 tools because nobody told me, you know, I needed, you know, a pair of round nose pliers. You know, nobody told me that when I asked in the store. So that's really what I'm trying to enable you with information that I wish I had, and also to try to keep your costs down. Now, with that said, I think that you can probably pick up all the tools here on this table for probably somewhere between, you know, $40 to $60, which, believe it or not, is on the low end. And, you know, you're going to spend a lot more money on everything else. But just for the tools, I think you can probably pick up all these tools for somewhere around $40 to $60, just depending upon, you know, where you're buying them, what part of the country you're in, what time of the year it is, are things being marked up or down, and then what brands that you're going to go with. These tools over here that we talked about are going to be, you know, again, things that you can get into. You can work yourself into getting these types of tools as you get more advanced in your using. And, you know, also when you start upgrading to higher end stuff, because you've really perfected your craft. And now you know, you're going to want to buy your more expensive stuff that it'll last longer, because in the end, it saves money. So there you go. So what we have on the mat is our finishing tools for you beginners out there. And that's it. That's what I have for this tutorial. So I sure hope you guys enjoyed following along in this thorough explanation, which I hope I did a good job on giving you a thorough explanation of all the various tools that I use to make all the types of jewelry that I make. And you can see some of it here. And then just separating out what you beginners will need. So I hope you enjoyed this and found this informational and useful, and it really helps you out. And so if it did, please go ahead, guys, and hit that like button. And if you haven't already, I'd sure appreciate it if you subscribed to support the channel. So until next time, friends, thanks so much for joining me, and be blessed.